Peace, blessings. I wanted to get something on video and get it out there in case there's someone who had a similar experience, and this could be reassuring and or affirming. Because I actually just watched a video and reminded me of this experience, and so that's prompting me to make this video. I've been hesitant to talk about this experience because it's just tough to describe. It's going to be difficult to describe the fullness of it. So in fear of doing it injustice, I haven't made a video on it, but I'm going to attempt it. Okay, so it was an open vision I had. It was right during my day. It was the middle of the day. I wasn't in meditation. I wasn't in prayer. Although I do try to live my life in that state if it's at all possible. And that day I was trying to live in the presence. And what happened was I strongly felt the presence of God. And what I mean by that, how I would describe that, is I wasn't in my critical mind. There wasn't any worry in me. Almost like if my normal life was the ocean with waves and everything going on and all the activity on the surface of the ocean. It was as if I was when the presence of God is there, it feels like I'm more like I'm a seagull flying above it all. And I can still see it all and interact with it all, but it's the heaviness of it doesn't have a hold on my soul. And I'm beginning to realize like the wind beneath that bird's wings that allows it to do that is faith. So I'm riding above the waves to begin with. And then when the presence of God comes, it's as if there's an upwelling, and like an eagle can ride on can sometimes just hover, or you'll see a hawk, they can hover on the upwellings, and it can bring them up really, really high. So it's as if this upwelling and this presence of God lifts your soul. So that began to occur, and then this happened with my eyes open, so I was aware of what was around me, but at the same time a scene was playing out in my mind that was so powerful that it drew like almost all my attention to it. I had just enough left in this world to keep me from falling, or not being aware of what I was doing or bumping into something. So, and this just happened quick. My vision it was like misty. I don't know if I want to say misty, but like there was a white light that was so bright yet easy to look at. Like if you've ever been in a plane and you're going through the clouds and you're almost getting, like, say you're going up through the cloud and you're almost to the top, and the cloud can become bright white light because the reflection off the other clouds or the sun, and just before you break through the cloud, the mist of the white cloud can be just radiant, almost like I'm noticing in this video. I've got a skylight above me, and I don't know how it's going to show up on the video, but it's like that similar light. It's very white, and it was similar to the Christ experience I had, where it's white, but to me, it's like on the cool spectrum. There's a little bit of tinge of blue, like a royal blue or an indigo blue, but not really saturated in blue. It's like white, but there's this sense of this beautiful, rich blue color. I don't want to say purple, it's more blue, but it's a dark blue, but with so much white light in it that it doesn't look dark. It looks bright and light itself. So that's the best way I could describe this light. And so that happens, and then immediately after, a being appears in front of me that within this presence, in this, it's not really fog, but within this light, this being at first is at a distance of about, looked like maybe like 60, maybe 50 feet away, and there wasn't much depth. It was just nothingness and this whiteness in this being who immediately looked like, if you would hear someone give an account of an angel or a divine being experience, just glowing. And this being was more of the blue in him than the surroundings, but still the white light. But I noticed a little bit more of the blue. And he was so radiant that I couldn't make out much detail. The only thing I could make out was he had a robe on, like all the way to his feet, and like very, like I couldn't make out detail, so I don't really know how I know this, but it's like an imprint was left on my mind. It was almost like bare feet, very simple robe, and it was all the same color. It was like the person, the robe, it was all one. It was just light. And as soon as my eyes were laid on this being, the intense feeling of being in the presence of God was elevated to probably as much as my soul can handle. That's what it felt like. And then it was like I was closer to the being. It just happened suddenly. Came closer, and I was right there, maybe like about as far as I am from the camera. Maybe he was a little bit further away. No, it was probably about this distance. And now I'm looking directly in his face. And my eyes it wasn't really my eyes, it was my mind at that point, because this was a vision. But my vision within my mind, which is even more acute than my physical eyes, with all of my ability in my soul of trying to focus and look and behold what I was looking at, I could not grasp or identify or put into something that I could contain of what I was seeing. Like, I could not do it. This being's face was not only unseeable, but the waves of feeling and revelation that were coming off of him were like, I didn't know who I was looking at. But I'm going to try to describe what it felt like, what I felt. Like, I believed I was in the presence of God. Like the God. The one who no one can see his face. And probably the most thing that amazed me the most was, I was going to try not to be emotional in this video because I always am. But when I relive that feeling, it's just too much for my body to handle, my human emotions. So it just happens. So the thing that amazed and surprised me the most about God was how youthful he was. As I was looking at him, I had the feeling, and these words came to me after the vision because I was wondering, who did I just behold? And the only thing that was ever whispered to me was the Ancient of Days. And I don't know that I even really know for sure who that is, but I believe it was God. And so as I'm beholding him, this knowing that the wisest being ever to have existed is in front of me. And at the same time of what I would think of as the wisest being, I would think of like this old master, like this wise sage, or like that's what my upbringing and belief system would think of. Like that feeling was there of this super wise ancient being, yet being in his presence was like, I've never seen a newborn baby or anything in this world that sprung forth life more than this being had. It was as if it was kind of like maybe a 12-year-old boy that had the birthing of 1 billion newborn babies and the pushing forth of trillions of spring flowers pushing up through the soil, like the essence of life that's in every seed that's going to grow, and or the hope in every mother's heart. It was like I was beholding the genesis of life itself. And it wasn't just a stagnant feeling. It was almost like it was like a flower opening, like a lotus opening continuously, like at about this speed. The revelations were coming right from his being, from his face. And it was wave after wave And it would be one, and then another one even greater, and another one even greater. And it was so youthful and innocent. Like, I never perceived God as like this innocent, youthful, delicate, precious being. And then the love, like human definition of love, even if we talk about spiritual love or divine love, that doesn't even come close to, I don't even think love's the right word, because it just doesn't describe it, but the saturation of his being, of life pouring out. It was almost like it was watering a seed of himself within me, and like wanting to birth forth that same genesis of life. So I never was able to get a grasp of what he looked like. From a distance, I mean, I don't want to give any descriptors if they're not accurate, and if I can't be sure. But at one point in the unfolding, a flash for a millisecond of an eye, like an eye that was looking at me. And when I saw that eye looking at me, it would be, okay, so he's turned, so it would have been his right eye. It was as if you took the innocence and preciousness and there's just not words to describe it. If you took the innocence of all life at its source and you put it in an eye that was shaped, it was shaped a little different than a normal human eye. It was a little rounder. And it was so perfect. It was almost, I don't want to say cartoon-like, but just different. And that little flash of seeing that eye is when the innocence of God hit me. And this whole experience didn't last long. It was like a minute, a little more than a minute. But that is seared, like I have a memory of that. Like a memory of light coming from that realm. You don't forget. It stays with you. It's like it goes directly into your hard drive. It's written in. And if anyone else has had this experience, and me describing mine is affirming to yours, which if you have these experiences, they're pretty affirming. You don't really need anyone else to tell you if this is true or not, because it affects your whole soul, your whole being, not to mention every emotion, thought, physical body. And there's nothing in this world, unless it is of that energy, there's nothing in this world that does that to you. So it would be very difficult not to know. Just know. You know that you know that you know. So yeah, for me, when I encounter the divine at that level that's getting very close to the presence of God, it's almost always that blue-white light. I mean, I've seen the golden light other times, but usually it's that blue-white light. In this being of Genesis, the genesis of life, the origin of all life and every living thing, the animator of the universe, of this entire universe, this plane of existence and way of being, is at least what he let me experience of him. Was a feeling of surrendering into his presence, growth of my soul can take place where everything is easy and free, and it just happens. It comes into its fulfillment, and the heaviness and the struggle isn't of him. It is not of this being. So I just wanted to get this out there. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. One thing I remember, I went back and watched the video I made about the experience I had with Christ. And I noticed in the part of it when I talked about first seeing him and it was like lightning was in the air. I didn't mean that there was like lightning. What I meant was the color of lightning, the same blue white light that radiated that light, but it was an equal light. It wasn't like there was lightning shooting, but it was intense. Like lightning had just struck and it was gone, but the sky is still lit up with that blue white light. It was like that. It was just this all around. So yeah, I wanted to make that correction, but that's it. Okay, just wanted to get that out there. Blessings, everybody. And seek God, this beautiful, innocent, radiant being that is upholding all of reality. Through faith. Faith is a letting go and a trusting that you are a child of this light and this God who is so kind. Blessings, peace.